Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Well, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome. I'm Adetokunbo.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Are we back to Apapa again today?
Oh, goodness. We are. And,
Oh, boy.
you know, each time we visit Apapa...
Question you even want to ask is, have we ever really left?
You know, each time we visit, you expect that it should be a flourishing area. That's like the entry point for imports.
Several committees have done things there.
Exactly.
There's even a presidential committee.
Oh, okay.
And then the state government is gone. The governor himself has gone there. There are several agreements, but today, we're still grappling with that.
It's sad because the presidential task force came and, you know, the move was big. The vice president was there, I think, about 2-3 years ago. I recall that he had to come via helicopter. Personally. So you thought it was going to be the end, especially because this is our major revenue earner. I mean, we get a lot of money from the ports, no gainsaying. So the vice president was there. Then that presidential task force came in and they did some work. They said they were going to hand over to the state government. The state government took over, had their own task force as well. And essentially it was meant to end the whole gridlock situation. Now, you see the gridlock, but what causes the gridlock is as a result of, you know, the extortion. Essentially, it is said that the gridlock is meant to facilitate the extortion. But if you go into the ports, you hear tales of how long it takes to clear a container, to go through the process. So we thought, you know what, let us visit and see what's happening. As you said, we never really left there. And the idea was to go see if anything has improved after the task force upon task force, the interventions. Don't forget, the residents have been up in arms against the government, against, you know, other stakeholders involved in this, saying this has to end. Okay, this should be. I wonder how people that do business in Nigeria actually do it, because you have to go through a lot to do business. But we went there, and guess what? Our correspondent was attacked. Our team was attacked, essentially. The driver and the team was attacked, and it just shows you what the average... Because we're press, right? We're not there to do business. We went there to cover what was happening, and he was stabbed. Very, very sad to see that in the process of even trying to cover, not do business, we were stabbed in the process. And I say we, and I use that term, you know, advisedly, because this could have been anyone on the team. Thankfully, our driver is doing well, is doing better now. But this clearly shows that we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder, in fact, bigger than a gunpowder. And it looks like no one is willing to do anything about it. We put our neck on the line to see what we came back with. So I wonder what has happened to that presidential task force, the state task force, the security agents that are meant to protect on that route. If it is our major revenue earner, then we should do better as a nation.
I think that what's important here is not just to... we shouldn't let this lie low and just go as just one of those issues that's just gone on. There are allegations that certain members of NURTW, Road Transport Employers Association, Maritime Workers, and all of those ones, they are allegations. How true or not these are, I think the onus lies on officials of government to ensure that the needful is done.
Allegations of what?
Allegations of them being the ones who perpetrated the attack.
Oh.
And now, if that is true, we shouldn't allow it to lie low. Don't forget that there are those who believe that there are very strong cartels at the ports, for which reason this thing is not abating. For God's sake, the president made a pronouncement. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the biggest black nation in the world, made a pronouncement and says, you know what, we want this nonsense to stop. And enforces and says, okay, you guys go do something about it. Kayode Okoyefa spent so many months, if not years, trying to get this sorted out. As you said, the vice president himself led the team to go there. I remember that pronouncement by Governor Sanwo-Olu saying, we will name and shame. We haven't heard one name, much less shame, of you know, anyone who's involved in all of this. So, and this happens.
Except that we're all ashamed of how the road currently is.
Unfortunately, I mean, I don't even know how we can allow these to go on. For God's sake, this road is just one of those roads along the artery of the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, which is a major international, you know, passage into the country. Just one step off one step on one of the highways and you find yourself along the Apapa Oshodi Expressway, and what kind of image are we going to be, are we pushing out to anyone who is coming into Nigeria and not sure whether or not his or her life is safe? And I think it's just one of those things that we shouldn't allow this to lie low. For God's sake, okay, so if the press can be attacked, who knows how many people are being right now frustrated? Don't forget that newspaper report you read, was it about 6 months ago or thereabout, where we said that 100 million naira is being extorted daily at these ports. Just imagine 100 million naira daily. 30 days, how much is that? 1 year, how much is that?
Well, yeah, well, that means people need to be cautious and careful when you go there, because incidentally, when the crew got there, they went with, the traffic officials, some security agencies, but at some point, they were no longer in sight. And maybe while our correspondent team was leaving the area, that was when that happened. But in any case, let's let you, yeah, so there you go. So he was rushed to the hospital where he was eventually got some treatment. So that raises a lot of red flags. So thankfully, that has been reported to the authorities. So we expect the police to do what they are supposed to do. But let's bring you this report so you could just get some more background about what transpired.
Welcome to Apapa, one of the local government areas in Lagos State and host to 2 ports and several terminals operated by the Nigerian Ports Authority. Talking about gridlock and Apapa to some may look like flogging a dead horse. But to some others, it goes beyond that, considering how much is lost.
If the driver does not distribute goods, the consumers cannot have it. The agent will not see it. If the price of things are too high, this is because of this.
Some stakeholders consider continuous discussion on the traffic situation as a veritable solution to addressing it, reason they are here. These men and women, members of the Nigeria Association of Road Transport Owners, say they are working in collaboration with the Lagos State Special Committee on Apapa. They have the backing of the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority and the police for this exercise, which is meant to enforce the removal of trucks parked on the road without authorization. Few minutes into our recording, the law enforcers are not anywhere the camera could pick them. The challenges with the traffic situation in Apapa may be many, but not insurmountable.
We call the point a computer where all the documentation will be done. You can see a staff pressing his phone for like, the process that takes just 2-3 minutes. You can be there for like 1 hour. They'll be pressing phone, they'll be playing game on their phone. Why we have the truck that's supposed to exit the port? And they are doing this just to create an artificial traffic in the port, so that from creating this artificial traffic, something will be coming down to their pocket.
All this my hand now, if it's he beat me now. All this.
The drivers of these articulated vehicles have their stories to tell, most of them about extortion.
It's my column. I can't just go to the road, right? I'm going to Tinker. I'm a container driver. I'm on my work. They stop me to bring money. Police, soldier at Alakija under bridge, Alakija. They asked me to bring 5,000. I asked them for what? Soldier dragged me down. Everybody started to before beat me. So tell my teeth come out.
Still talking about attacks on drivers, our camera captures how one of them is attacked. Before long, our crew is also attacked. The driver is being stabbed. While we clear to safety, the gridlock remains, with hope that those with the wherewithal will address it sometime soon.
Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies. We'll start with the Guardian newspaper today. Adamu panel asks for time. February 26, APC convention shaky. So there you go again. Efforts to reconcile aggrieved chieftains inconclusive, the first of the riders. Then we will carefully study interim report of committee, Namani assures. So there's a big focus on the front page of The Guardian here today. So it's... And then there's also a little bit of some political stories as well. INEC raises security concern, vows to disqualify erring parties. So that's INEC continuing their back and forth about all of those scenarios. So that will be The Guardian today.
Well, the Vanguard has lots of headlines on its front page, and we'll start with the big one, as usual. APC convention, CPC, ACN blocks in supremacy battle. So that's how the Vanguard leads this morning. There you go. That's not me, that's the Vanguard. But the riders will interest you. Al Makura, Sonny emerged leading chairmanship candidates. 10 other aspirants jostle with them. All eyes on Buni's CECPC to deliver. So page 5, as I said, has more details on that story. It's a countdown, actually. We're in the month that is meant to be the month of the APC's convention. But if, we go by the headline from The Guardian, and now this, what happens to that date? Well, we'll find out. Just right on top of that nameplate, 14 years after crash, stock market records new heights. It's quite interesting when you see the stock markets across the world having challenges. And then you look to Nigeria, and true to the color of our flag, you see green, green, green. It's good, right?
The land is green.
So hey, good job, I guess. When you look at what's happening to crypto and you see red, 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 and you hear people saying, I told you. Well, that's a conversation for another hour. Business Morning will definitely give you all the dates on that one. There's this one on iPop on the front page. Ohaneze rejoices as Kanu urges peace on followers. It's page 11. I wonder what happened to the political solution the president spoke about. Well, perhaps page 11 might capture that. There's a couple of other stories on the front page. Let me just mention this one. Stop lopsided hirings. Senate warns MDAs. So does that give, bite to all the allegations around federal character or not? Well, you might want to find out the context of this one. There's sports on the back page, by the way. Nigeria may be out of AFCON, but you see this one, AFCON 2021, Salah still shocked at Super Eagles' early exit. Yeah, we're shocked as well. Thank you for sharing in our shock. Can we move?
You couldn't believe it, right? It's like, whoa, that team?
Yeah.
How?
The team was compact, so compact against Egypt. They played so well, and then
they played fantastic football.
I hate to say this, though. Thank God Tunisia is out as well. So.
Oh dear. It doesn't solve anything.
Are you sure you hate to say it? You just wanted to put it out there.
Maybe that's not the expression. I hate to sound petty was what I meant.
Well,
but hey, thank you very much.
The country was so shocked.
Everyone was shocked. I didn't need to, but
what happened?
I'm always scared to watch Nigeria play. Even if it's against Republic of Benin. I'm always afraid to watch.
Hey,
trust
no team is small team.
Exactly, exactly. Even there are some, I think was it the last World Cup or the one before it? There were so many upsets. Teams that you'd never heard of before, just causing up. What the?
I think it was basically saying, look, it was in our hands. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So, and then in our hands, whichever way, either mentally, preparation-wise, psychologically, it was in our hands.
Absolutely.
And he just thought, wow, I can't believe this.
Well, wake-up call, I guess. But let's leave it there for Vanguard Sports.
Let's just hope that we don't do the same thing against Ghana. Leadership newspaper is next. Oh, by the way, just so you know, it's February 1. The lead story as National Assembly transmits bill to President. CSOs, stakeholders give PMB 7 days to sign the electoral bill. Stories on page 4. Say INEC needs legal framework to issue 2023 elections guidelines.
I don't think the president, actually, pardon me, needs as much as 7 days. because I recall in that interview, it was asked pointedly, would you sign if this thing's a change? He said yes. So essentially it means once it gets to my table, that's how I'm interpreting it.
It depends on his schedule. Maybe, what if he's busy?
That's why I said once it gets to his table.
Well, if he gets to his table, if the bill gets to his table, or if he gets to his table, what if he's too busy to get to his
By the
table?
way, this is one of the most important documents.
But don't forget, this is the Federal Republic of, it's a very large country to govern.
Well, the
He could be
president gave
busy.
his word. The president is a man of his word, and he's promised to bequeath better electoral system. So I imagine 7 days might be too much, really.
Okay, well, anyway, 2 other riders. Legislature has done its part, says Lawan. Northern youths warn governors and others. Find the details of that story on the front page of Leadership newspaper. Oh, this one, and then we'll move on. National Assembly gives revenue agencies 3 trillion naira target for 2022. I'm going to leave it there for the Leadership newspaper.
We'll take a look at Nigerian Tribune next. As Constitution review ends this week, governors may lose immunity for criminal offenses. Remember the, which paper was it that reported how I think they threw out that proposal for the Speaker or the President. Is it Speaker and the President of the Senate for immunity? It was thrown out. You thought, would that be the end of it? So if we can have it, is this what this means? Then who should? But anyway,
it didn't say
may
for, it's specific for criminal offenses. In the first place, what would a governor be doing?
Well, look at the riders first. Don't just hang on. Sexual harassment, disobedience to court may become impeachable offenses. Judiciary to take full custody of Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal. Tribunal membership expanded. All geopolitical zones to be represented. NAS under pressure to scrap NJC. States to control judicial appointments. Whoa. There you go. You know, the NBA had always made a big, and they raised questions as to how the judges are appointed. So now, if states are going to take control, I think the modalities would be of great interest.
When you read those, riders says, okay, the impeachable offenses, and I'm wondering, who's going to impeach? The state assemblies?
Who else impeaches? Yeah, the people who do that.
The State House of Assembly?
Mm-hmm. If they spell out the criteria, it's clear. Unlike now, you remember somebody was impeached because he was alleged to run a poultry last time out. So it's left to the whims and caprices of the assemblies to decide this is an impeachable offense.
Exactly.
You go out.
Yeah, exactly. Gross misconduct.
And what is gross misconduct?
Exactly.
So they determine it however they want. So now maybe this might make it any better. Who knows? But speaking about some political matters also, this is above this lead story. National Convention, APC writes INEC. Governors undecided on 11 chairmanship aspirants. We have been overwhelmed with petitions, APC Reconciliation Committee says, as it submits interim report. So that's what you see right there. And does this, equally raise concerns? Maybe this Senate might be interested in this one. Customs, immigration raise alarm over bottlenecks against 2022 revenue projection. Remember, I was the Senate, and so they were disagreeing about the MDAs in terms of how much. Okay, yeah, look at the rider. Senate raises targets for revenue-generating agencies to 3 trillion naira.
There you go.
Once upon a time, our budget used to be a little less than this, so they could single-handedly fund the budget. But now, 3 trillion.
Can I say
so if your budget is 6 trillion, 2 agencies with 3 trillion.
You're home and dry. Well, if things were that easy.
Is that 3 trillion for all or for one?
All of them, I believe. All the MDAs.
Revenue-generating agencies, each.
Each. You know what?
It's in the details.
Just read the paper first. Just go ahead and read it. I'd like you to make up your own mind from what you see.
Okay.
Don't go with the headline alone. We always like to say that. Don't go just with the headline.
Yeah.
Read between the lines.
Because money is a big deal, and that's how Daily Trust leads this morning, leads with money. It's not 3 trillion naira, but it's equally huge. Banks battle discos over 820 billion naira debt. But right on top of it is very small. You see 9 years after. So this has been ongoing for 9 years, and I believe that refers to the privatization of the power sector, or at least part privatization, or because I mean things have since. But you know what? Let me take a look at the riders. Employees decry salary backlog. Others, NERC to halt owner-manager regime. That's according to sources. Little to show in increased electricity supply. Investors overpaid. Poorly managed discos. That's according to experts. You know, just to get through, take a look at the, so I say, the rot in the power sector alone.
And this is in spite of the fact that I know they always talk about appropriate pricing, appropriate billing, and things like that. It has continued to increase for the consumer.
Yeah.
It is not going down. It's not going down.
And some of them happen without you knowing, actually.
Yeah, and there are special provisions for some states who also pay premium for service delivery. So
The question,
you wonder why.
for those who have been speaking about renegotiating this whole power sector privatization thing, don't they have a point now? On the one hand, you have 820 billion naira in debts, and you owe a backlog of salaries. Where's the money? You know, don't also forget that one of the conversations we've had over time concerning this issue, the weak link in the entire discourse, whatever, that we've heard over and over again, is in the collection of tariffs from people and all of that. And then you're wondering, where's the debt going?
Well, you can't exactly say they have a point now or not, because some of this is, remember, some of them did also say, the government people, that it was locked down, legally speaking. So to unlock that, you know where to go.
That's the Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, I'll go to Daily Independent, also leading with money. And this one is 1 trillion naira. But what's interesting is it concerns something we talked about earlier. Port operations. Stakeholders reel 1 trillion naira annual loss to absence of single window. What does this mean? The details you will have to find on the inside of the pages.
So you don't think it's for cross-ventilation? You know, there needs to be more than one window. You need to understand that one well.
I know with all of the, I don't even know. Anyway, that's the lead of the paper this morning. And right under the picture you see on the front page, 2023 Guber election. Akwa Ibom PDP stakeholders reject Governor Emmanuel's anointed candidate, say he is unpopular. Action may cause party's downfall. What does that mean? The details right there on the front page, continues on the inside pages of the paper this morning. FG Siemens deal to improve electricity for 40 million people, create 11,000 jobs. Okay, we're waiting.
Is it back on track?
You know, I dreamt of that, actually, yesterday. So it's interesting. No, I'm serious.
Wait, did you finish the reading?
Well,
it's like a dangling of the fire. Well, let me wait.
FG Siemens deal to improve electricity for 40 million people, create 11,000 jobs.
Dreams come true.
So is this back? Okay. I guess that's why we encourage them to read it. And then look at News Direct, 6.39 trillion naira budget deficit. NAS, MDAs disagree on 80% revenue remittances into federation accounts. So you see, the writer says we'll be rigid on MDAs to generate more revenue. Senate President. Fiscal Responsibility Act confusing, impracticable. Controller General Customs. So you thought that they normally have a handshake, you know, talk to themselves, governments.
You know, ever since COVID happened, handshake stopped. So it's just fist bumps now.
Even before COVID,
it was just a
ministry.
I
know, but even before COVID, we've had that issue of ministries, departments, and agencies not handshaking. We've had that. Even the president talked about the need for collaboration across board and all of that. We still don't have it. You know, ordinary ports, the ports, all the associations and services or whatever, they do not have a handshake. That's part of the reason I would
say. Fiscal Responsibility Act, where they, oh boy. Well, there you go. That is it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
Distinguished colleagues,
Federal legislators in the Senate and House of Representatives are once again fine-tuning the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, specifically Clause 84, which relates to the method of party primaries to nominate candidates for elective positions. President Buhari had refused to give his assent to the amendment bill, faulting the National Assembly's inclusion of mandatory direct primaries for political parties. But last week, the National Assembly rescinded its earlier position on compulsory direct primaries and included indirect and consensus methods as options. However, the House of Representatives, which did not include the option of consensus method, is again reversing itself and now supports the method but with some conditions.
I think the House and the Senate have decided to add, I believe, the consensus provision so that there will be no need for conference, but with certain provisos. And those provisos, hopefully, we'll be able to agree and insert them today to protect all aspirants for all positions, so that we'll all have an even playing field.
As regards consensus candidates, the amended bill provides in Clause 84(9) that a political party that adopts a consensus candidate shall secure the written consent of all cleared aspirants for the position, indicating their voluntary withdrawal from the race and the endorsement of the consensus candidate. It also states that where a political party is unable to secure the written consent of all cleared aspirants for the purpose of a consensus candidate, it shall revert to the choice of direct or indirect primaries for the nomination of candidates for the aforesaid elective positions. Furthermore, a special convention or nomination congress shall be held to ratify the choice of consensus candidates at designated centers at the national, state, senatorial, federal and state constituencies, as the case may be.
Distinguished colleagues,
the harmonized version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill is also before the Senate for passage.
For the consensus, the two chambers have produced in this bill now very clear definition of how a consensus candidate would emerge.
The amendment bill is to be sent to President Buhari once again for assent. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, that is what we're starting with today on the program. So we've got some gentlemen joining us from Abuja, 2 at the moment, but two will become 3 as we progress. So Honorable Jeff Ochenaka is a former member of the House of Representatives. He's also a former Deputy National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council. And sitting beside him is Emeka Nwacha, he's a political consultant and former SA to President Goodluck Jonathan. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Morning.
Morning, Chamberlain.
Okay, Honorable Ochenaka, let me start with you on this matter. Can we, to what extent, can we have some sigh of relief having seen the National Assembly transmit this to the President for assent? Honorable Jinka, that's for you.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate the National Assembly for living up to the expectations of Nigerians by going back to really work on the bill and sending it back to the President. I would like to say that in the name of Almighty God, in the name of anything that the President fears, not just respect, I would like to urge President Muhammad Buhari to please expeditiously sign the electoral bill into law, into an act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This request is born out of the genuine concern of Nigerians that he has to come out of a phobia for the electoral bill. Since all the electoral bills that have been sent to him, he has found one reason or the other not to assent to it. And we want him to rise above any interest, any partisan thing, to be a statesman, to sign this current electoral bill. Just as he did for the electoral, for the petroleum in the PIB. If there's any flaw, there's no law, there's nothing human that is perfect. We cannot expect perfection in the current electoral bill as we have it. And that's why there's a provision and calls for you to send for amendments. In the last PIB, he had to sign, and some days later, he proposed an amendment on some contentious issues and sent it back to the National Assembly, which they passed for him. So with the current National Assembly, if he has any reservation, any issue on any of the clauses, on any of the, let him sign it first, so that INEC can now go back and start the preparation for the forthcoming election, which I'm sure all Nigerians, everybody all over the international community, everybody is looking up to it, because we don't have another option of getting it right in the country. Because if we so fail this time, it will be a doom for the whole of Africa and the entire world. So we must get it right this time. So, and it starts with the president signing. Immediately the president finishes signing, then the Electoral Amendment Body, that the Independent National Electoral Commission, should now immediately use that as a framework to go back to work. They have to further strengthen the issues, because the electoral bill as it is now cannot address all the concerns and all the issues that will make the election to be the ideal that everybody is hoping. You can't put in everything into the law. So that's why the law has also, the electoral law has also provided for INEC to come up with regulations. And we expect that INEC should be able to go in and look at come up with regulations that will guide, especially party primaries this time. Because I see that all the party primaries that we do in the country are flawed.
Okay, Mr. Ochenaka, just a minute. We'll come to that part as we progress, but let me equally get the opening comment of Mr. Onwacha on the same subject matter. So, Mr. Onwacha, look, what kind of undercurrents or dynamics? There's usually a lot of backstory that goes on concerning assenting to this kind of bill. So could you just perhaps give us some background as to what should Nigerians likely expect? Should we expect that, look, the amendments have been done, there should be no further impediments, or what?
Thank you, Chibalin. I think it's commendable that after all the hiccups, the bill is finally going back to the president. These people are all politicians. Everybody, each of them, from the president, the senators, everybody else, have their own political interests. I think these have, to a large extent, dictated the ups and downs we have seen in passing this bill. Everybody has a candidate in mind, has a process in mind, and everybody is trying to propagate a process that will be beneficial to his intentions or his plans, so to speak. I personally agree with the president. A lot of people, there are a lot of fears that the president's primary interest or contention was about electronic transmission of votes. But it appeared to be actually based on the primary and the candidacy process. All the processes, the consensus, indirect primaries, and direct primaries have proven to be flawed in the past. So restricting it to just the direct primaries at first was suffocating. The parties need to have the leverage to be able to choose their candidates as best as they can. And when the candidate now emerges from the process of each individual party, then the populace, the electorate, can decide based on the qualities of each candidate. But it's better to allow the candidates that freedom. Let the parties within our political development, our level of political development, choose their candidates, present their candidates, and take the risks of facing the electorate for failure or success. So after all these things have now apparently been straightened out, I don't think there should be any problem in getting the bill accepted by the president at this time.
Well, Mr. Watcher, do you see any challenge in, I don't know if it's okay for me to jump ahead of post-signing of the bill now, do you see any challenge for the political parties in operationalizing this particular section, this particular amendment that the president has talked about? You know that even with the direct and indirect primaries options, we've had all kinds of litigation such that it's the courts that have had to settle some of these issues. In terms of the capacity of the political parties being able to agree on how to get their things done, throw up the best candidates they can, politically and competence-wise, do you see any challenge in operationalizing any of the provisions, any of the options on the table? The newest of them being consensus. Any litigations that you see, any stops, any banana peels that you think might be in the way that they need to find a way to avoid?
Well, as I said earlier, most of these altercations are driven by individual and group interests within these parties. People have, at this time, we're very close to the elections, quite just about a year. So people have their own candidates, and people have the idea of how best these candidates might emerge. So this is the current that drives all these altercations. Everybody is trying to push processes that might favor their candidate, so to speak. And that is the basic. Of course, there will be problems, you know. Every party is made up of different people, different characters, and different objectives, different political objectives. So those that feel that when the process begins within the parties, those that are not comfortable with the direction it's going within their parties will expect to go to court. But I think, as I said earlier, that given the leverage for choice on the kind of process to adopt within each party is the right thing to do. That is the most democratic path, you know. I mean, the flaws are out there. We had in Anambra elections, we had the candidates who purported to have 250,000 votes as his direct primaries election. But later on came up with only 43,000 during the main election. So where are all the candidates, all the people that voted for you, your own party members that voted for you during the primaries, and they were not available at the general elections? So this is all a process. This is all a process. Eventually, and at the end, we must think of restructuring all these processes. We have to take cognizance of the repetitive problems we have been facing and which continue to exist, and seek permanent solutions to them. You cannot continue with the same broad system which we have seen do not produce the ideal. You must muster the courage at some point to do the right thing.
Okay. Honorable, let me throw the same question, to you now. In terms of operationalizing this law, especially given the fact that over the years, what we have found out is that the courts have had to settle some of the issues that the law already makes clear on the table. Consequently, literally upturning some of the processes in the entire process. So I'm wondering, what are the challenges that you see the political parties themselves having in operationalizing this law, especially in the run-up to the general elections of 2023? Do you see a challenge? Do you see complexities beyond the issue of interests that Mr. Onwocha has mentioned?
Yes, in my response, I would like to urge the politicians to really not to think about self in terms of when issues of law come up, in the sense that you don't know which side you will be. Eventually, the law you make today might catch up with you tomorrow. In the build up to this, a lot of people were saying direct, indirect. But if you recall the results that turned out now in the Ekiti primaries. Some of the senators who participated in the election are now complaining that they are being shortchanged because of the law they made. So the most important thing is that we need to strengthen our legal system. Once you strengthen the legal system, it benefits all, no matter, it will benefit the president, it benefits her to make sure that the right thing is done. And let me say that the greater, we have to learn from our experiences. The Independent National Electoral Commission, as the electoral monitoring body, has a lot of role to play now that if immediately the president signs the electoral bill into an act, they will need to come up with our regulations in terms of how do we handle these processes in such a way that litigations will be less. I can tell you one of the things that I would like to suggest if the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission might be listening, or I will even send a memo to the Independent National Electoral Commission, is that the same way they insisted that there will be biometric voter accreditation system for the voting in Anambra and for the voting that will be coming up in subsequent election, that made it possible for candidates who scored 250-something thousand in the direct primaries to now score 40-something in the main election that they are supposed to have. It has cured a whole lot of this thing. If they now insist that political primaries, in the guideline they will prepare, that the political primaries, for you to participate in the primaries, you must have the accreditation process for that election must be through BVAS. Once you do that, it will cure a whole lot of things. It will cure a whole lot of these litigations and all whatnot. It will eliminate them to a very great extent. The reason is that all of us, people know that in the various political parties, why is there confusion? In the primaries that they just conducted in Ekiti, there's problem in APC, there's problem in PDP, there's problem in virtually, except in all the parties where they were not contest. What is the reason for that? The underlying cause is that the process is usually rigged and manipulated. Before the primaries, somebody will go, they will say they have ceded the party executive to a particular person, they will go and write names. And eventually those people who will conduct the primaries, they will go, even whether it is direct or indirect, they are the same thing, because virtually when people were arguing about direct or indirect, I said it was based on ignorance. Because for indirect primaries, you have to start with the process of direct. And that is in the direct, at all the ward levels, you go and elect the 3-man delegates, who you will now hand over your powers to go and now do the election on your behalf. And that is starting with direct. So, and in that process is usually flawed. In all the political parties, it is usually the issue of writing lists. You will send something like in the last election, I want to congratulate Chief Omogado for challenging the APC primaries in Anambra. Where you went, you will not see anybody anywhere in any of the wards conducting primaries. And at the end of the day, somebody will go and turn in results. Okay, and say that these are the primaries, and before you know it, they will say that they will set up an appeal panel. The appeal panel will go and affirm what they say. They will send it to the National Working Committee. They will also go and affirm it. All right, Mr. Ochenaka, we can't be doing the same thing the same way. Okay, just a minute. And I hope to get a different result. All right, so I want INEC to go back now and we'll come back to you on that. More details on party primaries so that the party primaries cannot be rigged. Mr. Ochenaka, just a minute. You know, we have two other gentlemen, so we'll like it to just go back and forth amongst all of you, because Mr. Adeboye has since joined us. He's the presidential aspirant of the third force under the coalition of political parties. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today. Well, he was just giving some... It's a pleasure to be here, right. Thank you. He was giving some practical examples of what happens in some parties. So in terms of your perspective, perhaps the coalition, because I imagine they would have been keeping an eye or two on the same electoral bill and the entire process. Now that it's been transmitted to the president, or hoping it'll be assented to, what are your impressions about it?
Well, basically, the Electoral Act it's been going back and forth between the executive and the legislature. And before then, it was going back and forth between the governors and the legislatures of the different parties. What I can see is that there is no perfect law. The things that make law to work, I'm a lawyer, are one, the political or the cultural environment in which that law is passed. Secondly, the motive of those who are operating. So what we need to understand or admit is that for the two main political parties, and unfortunately for a few of the other smaller parties, the intention of the leadership of the party is to cheat. They see themselves as agents of vested interests whose job is to see that the democratic will of the people is not reflected. So they approach the law from a point of view, mindset of sabotage. They will say, okay, wherever there is a loophole, let us take advantage of it. And my feeling is that however much you draft legislation, you cannot predict human behavior. So every iteration of a law is stronger than the one before. But that can also be matched by the stubbornness of the lawbreakers. So from 1999 to date, from the first few cases that we had in the court, notably Egolum versus Obasanjo and other cases that follow, you will see that each time we have an election, people will litigate certain gaps and loopholes and bad outcomes. And then the legislature and the judiciary will come together. The judiciary will pass judgments from which the legislature is supposed to learn. There was a time there was no card reader. Now we have card reader. There was a time I was arguing before the Supreme Court that the card reader, being part of the INEC guidelines, should be complied with. And the Supreme Court said no. Only the legislature can make mandatory provisions, not INEC. So as a result, INEC went back to put all of these provisions before the National Assembly. So we will continue to see that each time we hold elections, unless the culture is changed, that men of integrity are put in political parties, you will see that the politicians rig the elections ahead by constituting executives that are complicit with certain partisan interests within the party. And where elections are pending, that's why you see all the confusion in the executive of the party. They will go to court, get ex-party order to remove the executive that is there. They will continue to jostle up and down. You have factions of the executives. All of these things are manifestations of intention to cheat. So when you have an intention to cheat, it doesn't matter how many measures you put in place, you will still have upheavals arising from the system. So now that we are trying to strengthen the legislation, what I can contribute is to say that the political parties should try to change their culture. Unfortunately, and I'm not saying this just to embarrass APC or PDP, what happened in Ekiti recently has shown that they have refused to learn anything new. So what it might boil down to is that law enforcement has to have an attitude that electoral crimes, because when you commit a fraud, when you go and say someone who is not a party official or is not a delegate is a delegate, you go and get people on the street to hire them, and they come and misrepresent themselves, or you also perpetrate fraud by writing the wrong names and all of that. Crimes committed that are crimes under the law should not be excused because they take place in a stadium during a political convention or gathering. Second, the media should not congratulate or give Passover when somebody has won. Like the story being told about Anambra State. It could not have been lost on the media that there were no 250,000 or 230,000 people in the state. And that should have been copiously reported, and the executive of the party and the so-called winner should have been taken to task. Thirdly, people should abandon political parties that are full of leaders that are dishonest and outright criminal in their approach to these processes. And with so many political parties in place, it should be clear to the Nigerian people that they have options. And those who don't behave too well, people should just abandon them.
Well,
but
we talk
to
about these
rely on
options.
legislation alone, I'm a legal draftsman. I've drafted so many laws,
Right.
and I've seen that to predict human behavior and to exclude every malfeasance is difficult. You have to augment that with some other sanctions outside the legislative language itself.
Okay, we're due for a break in just about 2 minutes, but I'd like you to shed more light on a point you made, and you've made that severally in the course of your submission. And you talked about a certain culture within, the ruling party and the opposition party, culture to cheat, and to subvert, free, fair, and credible elections. And you referenced that, they approach lawmaking with that mindset. And I'd like you to speak to this particular electoral amendment bill in particular and give us your proof that shows that perhaps there are provisions in that law that is meant to sabotage or cheat ahead in this particular one that the president is about to assent to. Do you have provisions that prove that culture which you speak about?
Okay, there are three things you would have to observe. One, in the National Assembly, between the two chambers, you would see that there was no division regarding use of technology, regarding techniques on how best to secure the elections, but you have divisions between those who are already in control of party structures, otherwise known as governors, who want you to use indirect primaries because they've already rigged ahead. They had their conventions earlier, or what they call not convention, congresses. And in those congresses, you are the journalist, you have all the facts. You would see that in many places, members were original members were practically deregistered and new ones brought on board. In many instances, you had split executives. In many instances, the governors just practically wrote names and they announced those names as the executives. The intention is to put together their own electorate, their complicit suborn electorate. Because when you have a three-man delegate coming from a ward or local government, they are going to be the electorate in the convention or primary election coming. So many of them have gone to court. So these matters are in court, they are in public domain. So now the legislators from various states are under blackmail by the governors. You are not going to come back unless you bow to me. Or in any case, some of the governors want to replace their senators. They want to go to the Senate and sit down in what has become a gubernatorial retirement home. So what you find is that all of these pushes and shoves within the party were carried into the National Assembly. So even the advice given to the president with respect to whether to do direct primaries or indirect primaries and all of those things were colored by interest of the people who were doing the advising. So this is very obvious. So what happens is that things that could strengthen our elections, like electronic voting, like verification of identity, like controlling media coverage for even coverage of parties and perspectives, things that have to do with, for example, how to manage spending in elections, language to use, and things like that. They were not controversial.
Okay, Mr. Adebayo.
Because we all need those things. Yep.
Okay, so we'll take a look at, yes, you talked about the processes, how they merge. What about those who are indicating their interest? We'll focus on some of them when we come back in a moment. Don't go away. Gentlemen, you have the latest entrance into the presidential race, perhaps up until the party primaries, and see who emerges. Mr. Nwacha, let me start with you on this one. How does that sit with you?
Particular aspirant or the new set of aspirants?
Aspirants. The new ones.
Okay. Okay, fine. I think it's good that so many people are turning up to contest for president. It gives the electorate a good chance, or a better chance, to make a better choice. The more, the merrier, they say. You know, it's these 2023 elections are looking like they're going to be among the most intriguing in our history. So many things are still uncertain, not just in the two major political parties, but in the general field. You understand? You know, there are a lot of what I call mystery factors, which are still yet unresolved. You know, you have the obvious candidates coming forward, people who we have always known had the propensity to contest for presidency. But a lot of the major joker factors, the trick factors, have not yet declared their interest. You know, and this is going to be major factors in determining how this thing will go. When the president was here with you, interviewed by you last month or so, there was a question about his own choice or his own preference. And his answer seemed to suggest that he had somebody in mind who was holding close to his chest, so to speak. If you look at the character of the APC, the president remains the strongest influence still in that party. And if he says, or if he appeared to say that he had somebody who he has not declared, that means that a major surprise factor is still waiting in the wings, so to speak. Come to the PDP. Over the years, since the left government, there has been the absence of a general father figure or a patron who controls or who organizes or who they all look up to for advice and guidance. Tony Aneni, who used to do that kind of function, is now late. President Obasanjo, who could also have stepped into that kind of position, is no longer apparently interested in partisan politics. So what you have now in the PDP is factional, sectional interests, strong men from the northwest, northeast, south, you understand, all pushing forward their interest. There's no general idea of the direction the party is going in 2023. And when you have all these split interests, it makes it more potentially cantankerous, because everybody will be struggling within a small, within the calabash for prominence, not like crabs, and nobody knows how it's going to go. So it's not easy to see how things are progressing. And even in the PDP, you have hidden interests. You have someone like Peter B, who there's so much expectation from. Just yesterday, there was a statement he made, but it's still undecided, so to speak. And so many other hidden factors. So what we expect to see is that in the next few months, next couple of months or so, as these hidden interests which I've referred to, become more obvious, there might be a lot of contest, conflict, if not explosion, in some of these parties.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay, Honorable Ochenaka, for you, what do you see playing out?
Well, for the two presidential aspirants that declared their interest yesterday, I would like to congratulate them. Firstly, Governor Aminu Tambuwa, our former speaker, was my colleague in the National Assembly, and I'd like to congratulate him for having the courage to start a second phase of consultation. He aspired last time and didn't succeed, and he's also trying again this time. I wish him the best.
Ochenaka,
and
when they say
Senator Rocha Sokorocha, who
Honorable Ochenaka, just a minute.
Who happened
so when they say we're starting consultation, are they essentially telling us I am going to contest?
Well, from all indication, He has made up his mind to consult. So the only thing he's waiting for is for the people he will consult to urge him to do that. And definitely, it will be difficult for anyone to. That is his right. It is definitely difficult for anyone to urge one to forgo his right. It's not. You will not be fair to the person. So you will expect that the end of the consultation that will be the formal declaration. It's like one step further, so that they will not say that the aspiration was based on their personal ambition, but based on the wishes and aspiration of the people. And I would like to say, in the case of Rochas Okorocha, I said, he is my senator, my former governor, and although yesterday he said his aspiration is not based on the fact that he's from the southeast, that most Nigerians believe that the next president should come from southeast extraction. In his own case, he said he believes that he will make a Nigerian president, that he will be, he's aspiring based on his personal credentials. So based on that, we wish him well. So, and as my colleague here did say, a lot of Nigerians who, as the days go by, will definitely come to aspire. People are waiting for this electoral. One of the things that will instill confidence for very credible candidates to come out for this election will be dependent on the product of the Electoral Act, if the president signs, and then the guidelines that the Independent National Electoral Commission will put in place.
Okay.
By the time people are assured that this system will not be rigged, that it will not be flawed, most very, very credible people will definitely come to, more credible people will definitely come to aspire.
All right.
And that is all that we need to get our leadership system right. Once we get the leadership system right in this country, a lot of things will fall in place. So it is important that we take these issues serious. And the Independent National Electoral Commission has a lot to do. When I say a lot to do in this regard.
All right,
By
Mr.
the time
Ochenaka,
they are battling with the issue of...
okay. Pardon me, let me bring in Mr. Adebayo on this one as well. So for you, Mr. Adebayo, I mean, how does it work with the coalition, the third force? Do you consult? Do you make a public announcement? Because you see that you are aspiring to be president as well.
Okay, what we do, we consult with the people, and that consultation has been taking place for 2 years or more. So by the time you invite journalists to your venue, you already made up your mind to run. So the language of I'm consulting is just part of the slangs that they use. By the time I come to a TV studio and talk to the public about issues, you've made up your mind to run. So that's the style of each group. For us, what we are trying to let people know is that in 2023, it's a new start. It's an opportunity for the status quo to be challenged. And we are consulting with the people of Nigeria, and the feelers we are getting back is that they don't want any of these big parties who have ruled up to now. Because you will notice that when they are talking, whoever is coming out, whoever is the aspirant, they are not able to point to concrete achievements. You see how they labor. They are not able to say, I'm going to stand on the legacy of this and that has been done. They just come out and look for things to say. So what we are saying basically is that in 2023, it's going to be an election that is determined by the people. The candidate will come from the people. The movement that's going to carry that candidate will come from the people. And the mandate to govern in a different direction will come from the people. Because as we are talking about people's aspirations and all of that, it's unfortunate that we are talking about these things on top of people having empty stomachs, on people who are living in captivity in Nigeria, waiting for their families to pay ransom, on top of people going to the venue of these declarations by flying over the country. There are people who are not able to drive freely on the road because of banditry and other issues. And when you look at all of these things, you discover that people are more focused not on the internal processes of these political parties, which they repeat every 4 years or so, and the intrigues. People are focused on, are there going to be new people coming out with fresh ideas that can liberate Nigerians from this routine that doesn't lead to anything? There's nothing Nigerians want to gain in having another president who is just one of the same. People want these lingering problems to be solved. Many of the problems we see that even led to the complication in the Electoral Act is just the misbehavior of the people who are in the status quo. So I would say, without taking undue advantage of the opportunity you have given to me, to say that people in APC and PDP should take a warning that Nigerians actually want something new. And their failure so far to renew themselves will mean that people will have to go outside the two of them to renew the country. So even though I'm going to run as a presidential candidate of a third party, I would still recommend, for the good of democracy, that these two political parties should go into the mode of repentance. What they've done in Ekiti shows that they are not in the mood for that at all. So if they don't go into this mode of repentance to feel that Nigerians are getting ashamed of an electoral system that is full of cheating, is full of forgery, is full of, if you read the judgments that come from the courts and the kind of things that people perpetrate in the name of trying to win elections, you will not be surprised when they get into power and this fraudulent behavior continues. So a person who can rig a ballot will rig the public treasury. It's very obvious.
Well,
so
Mr. Adewale, allow me to...
of leadership being provided by this
it's the leadership element. My apologies, Mr. Adewale. It's the leadership element that raised this question on my mind now, so which I'd like to take to the political consultant on the seat. That's Mr. Onwecha. Looking at the section 131 of the Constitution of Nigeria as amended, I look at the CV, or rather, maybe it's a CV, of what is expected of a president of Nigeria, and I don't think it's any less for that of the governor as well. Just 4 things. He's a citizen of Nigeria by birth. He has attained the age of 35 years. He's a member of a political party and is sponsored by the political party. And he's been educated up to at least school cert level or its equivalent. Looking at this, we want to recruit, we want to employ someone to run the affairs of 200 million Nigerians. And that's all we have. Do you see a challenge with this? Do you see us? I mean, this is what the Constitution says, there's no doubt about it. But in terms of even getting anyone to run for that office, do you see a role for the political parties to actually process and I don't know, probe whether or not that person has the capacity to deliver on that mandate of providing leadership for the leading black nation in the world?
Well, apart from the constitutional provisions or requirements to certifying anyone who wants to run, there are also other moral considerations and even some other legal considerations which the parties can leverage upon in getting the right candidates for their parties. There is a question of verification of certificates, qualifications. University, secondary school is the one thing to fill up a form and say you attended this school and you got this certificate. Another thing to now verify it later. We have seen in history, in our history, so many discrepancies, so many even elections that have been upturned because of this false claims and fraudulent claims. There's also provisions for people who have been indicted by panels of inquiry, by legal processes, criminal or civil, Nigeria or abroad. Are you free of indictment? Do you have anything in your past that suggests you have a criminal history, settlement, or whatever? you know. Then there's personal history, you know, people who have been, by their conduct, people who are viewed in public, who have had altercations, who have had problems here and there. The important thing is that the parties have to critically examine their candidates. You understand? You can see so many candidates coming up. So Nigeria needs only the best.
Okay.
You know, we don't want people with baggages. You know,
okay.
I mean, somebody, for example, I don't want to call any name, somebody who, in the past few weeks or months, every day there are reports that social and social stolen properties have been recovered from him. University, schools, whatever. You know, you expect that he's currently supposed to be going through a legal process, criminal process, determine those cases of recovered stolen properties. But you see the person coming on TV say he's running for president. I don't know how we're supposed to look at such a situation. They're calling you a thief every day and saying that these are the particular physically certified properties which you have stolen. And you're coming and you give all those one, you're contesting for president.
Well, there are those who will argue, Mr. Watcher.
We need to be serious. You understand?
My apologies. There are those who will argue that those are allegations that they have to be proved at one point or the other. But we're running out of time. Let me take this to Honorable. My apologies.
Just for me, sorry. Just for me. There are not allegations. The properties have been recovered from him and taken over by government or by the EFCC. They've been recovered.
Well, as you said, you can't mention names now. So
it's not an allegation at that stage.
Okay. Let me ask Honorable Ochenaka. We're running out of time now, but what are the questions that we should be asking? Now, we have not gotten to the point where these contenders are already candidates. They are still wishing, you know, consulting and all of those words. So the question that I want, what are the questions that Nigerians should be asking? And when I say Nigerians, I'm talking about even members of the political parties who are Nigerians as well. In 60 seconds, give me bullet points. What are the questions that those people who are going to elect their candidates, their flag bearers, what are the questions they should be asking?
Well, Nigerians should really ask for the democratic credentials of the people who will lead them. In terms of in organizations that they belonged, in places they have been, in schools they have attended, and the positions they have occupied, what do they do with those positions? And you can rightly say that no one can change at a very old age. People that are up to 40, 50 can never change. Again, they have already formed their personalities. So if somebody was a 419er or a criminal and he enters into office, you know, you are not expecting to have any change. Or if somebody is a contractor and he doesn't, you know, execute contracts given to him, you don't expect that such a person, when he goes into office, will expect that if he gives contract to people, that those people will execute those contracts. So it's important that any person that comes out to aspire this time, that it's subject to a lot of public scrutiny. People should take out their time to investigate all the issues that concern people. And that's what strengthens democracy in other climes. By the time you come out, even the things that you do in the darkest of all places that you think that people have, people will go and dig them out. And when they dig them out, such people will usually either bow their heads in shame and apologize. We don't expect that we should glamorize criminality this time. And one of the things that will also be very important...
60 seconds. Pardon me, I have to butt in now. But we gave you 60 seconds because of our time. We're totally out of time. Let me get Mr. Adebayo's closing thoughts. I would have asked him some of those questions you raised, really, because those are the questions we should pose to the aspirants. But on a final note, talking about this third force, it's a term that has been abused. If you could do this in less than a minute, just how strong is a third force to contend against the main party and the opposition in Nigeria?
The third force is the largest force in the country. The third force basically means anyone who has not been tainted by the bad records of the PDP and the bad records, as you can see, of the APC. So the third force is the rest of Nigeria. So what we have been trying to do is to do an articulation or getting everybody together, because within the third phase, there are those who are disgusted and said, politics is dirty, I'm not interested. And they go into protest, or they just check out of the country, or they just face their own private businesses. So if you look at any metric you use to judge it, the number of the people who are in PDP or APC up together are not up to 10% of Nigerians who are eligible to be in political parties. If you look at elections, when they are held, including the last one held in Anambra State, you have less than 9% of the population coming out to vote, in spite of all the billions spent by the candidates. So what we have has been an attempt to articulate the frustrations of Nigerians and merge everything together. There are three levels. There are those who do just citizens' action. They complain when, for example, you want to inordinately enrich fuel suppliers by increasing the pump price of petroleum products.
Okay.
You claim that there's subsidy somewhere, even though the president said anyone who mentions subsidy should be arrested.
All right, Mr. Adebayo.
So those do public actions and then they go back. Second,
Okay,
we have the NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
I'm afraid, Mr. Adebayo.
And then the last phase is now to have political parties.
Okay, so we'll see. I mean, many will be looking to see if the third force, or can the third force these other parties out of the way. So I guess time will tell. But I have to thank you, Mr. Adewale Adebayo, presidential aspirant of the third force, a coalition of political parties, as well as Honorable Jeff Ochenaka, who is a former Deputy National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, of also a former member of the House of Reps, as well as America Onwacha, political consultant and an former aide to former President Jonathan. Gentlemen, thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn our attention to still getting the process right. Well, that will be in a moment, focusing on INEC and the House of Reps. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're talking about getting the electoral process right. We've got two gentlemen who are going to weigh in on the nomination and screening process of electoral officers for INEC. We've got Honorable Yunusa Ahmad Abubakar. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. He is a member of the House of Representatives Committee on Aid, Loans and Debt Management, as well as Ali M. Ali sitting beside him is a publisher of People's Daily and the Deputy President's Nigeria Guild of Editors. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Well, good morning, Chamberlain. It's good to be here. Good morning, viewers.
Thank you. Honorable Abubakar, let me start with you. I know you might have heard of some of the rumblings or complaints, if you will, concerning some members who are being screened for the position of INEC. So, from your perspective, what can you tell us about how this process is going on, the screening process at the moment?
Good morning, viewers. And just like you said, the National Assembly Act has mandated it pursuant to the section of the Constitution. We have what is called the Act's Amendment. And then we have also Section 134 of the 99 Constitution. When you put these two together, they help in really serving as a guide to the National Assembly, especially the Senate chamber, which particularly is saddled with the responsibility of screening members, especially in this question, members of Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, when you look at all the guiding parameters, just like I said, and I try to join the issue of, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. When you look at that section, especially Section 134 of the Constitution, And with the members so far screened, all the lists that were submitted to fill in the vacancies of those whom their tenure is yet to expire, Mr. President, pursuant to that section, have sent the list to the National Assembly and to the Senate chamber, which was read, and a kind of a background check was conducted of them, also that pursuant to some other section that provide for that, from the DSS, some other security agencies. I mean, a kind of a background profile checking to find them whether they are appointable or not. And then out of those people that were screened, I can't remember all their names, but I know particularly there are two, one professor and the former, advisor to Mr. President, it is on media, Onoche, yes. Two of them, their screening were delayed for two different purposes. For the professor, there was an allegation in 2001 that need to be cleared. So they deferred his case for further legislative input in trying to round up after giving him his first right of defense. When the names were given, petitions were received in these two particular people. For the prof, they delayed it. But for NHA, also she was given the right to defend herself. All the allegations she cleared, again, the issue of being participatory, a card-carrying member, and so on and so forth. She defended herself to the convincing of the committee. But what the committee found along the petition is that at that time, there is somebody from her state or from geopolitical zone, specifically that is not yet to finish his term. And by the Federal Character Act, and the section also that tried to put this in the Constitution, confirming her will tantamount to violating that section. So she was also deferred on the ground that until their quota, that person, representing them or sitting on their quota must have expired his term. Okay. And is not found to be reappointable according to the Act, then they will visit her case. So far, so good. These were the results taken out.
All right. So, Mr. Ali, at the moment, do you consider the ongoing, the current screening process devoid of anomalies?
Well, I wouldn't say it's devoid of anomaly. I wouldn't say it's devoid of anomalies. For the reasons that previously Loretta was not confirmed, was rejected, because the ongoing screening is of another card-carrying member of the APC, which is which clashes with certain constitutional provisions. So, and you, at this juncture, you want to ask why all the time nominate people who are clearly partisan to be part of the electoral body. It will raise a lot of questions, a lot of skepticism about the neutrality of the Electoral Commission itself. So I would say, yes, there is some anomaly going on there. And we shouldn't be so, because there are so many qualified Nigerians from across the 6 geopolitical zones who could serve very well. And so the insistence on people who are clearly partisan, who have been found to belong to especially the ruling party, you would say, yes, that is anonymous. It raises a lot of questions, and people will be skeptical because of what had happened previously with the case of Loretta especially. And well, some people will also point at the fact that previously it was possible for card-carrying members to be part of the electoral body, but with legislation and clearly in violation of the Constitution. So yes, I think that is
anonymous. There's some anomaly there. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my understanding.
Just to be clear, I'm looking at the list of the nominations, and you say that one of them is clearly partisan. Who are you referring to?
A certain Professor Gumus, Miss Gumus, yeah, from the South, I think.
Put on good authority that his partisan is a member of a political party, the APC, in this case.
Exactly.
Right. So let me take this to Honorable. I mean, you referenced what happened with the presidential aide, and incidentally, it was quite interesting that the National Assembly did not reject her nomination as a result of the uproar about her, you know, obvious relationship with not just the APC, but I mean, with the party in power. I mean, the president, I should say. So that was not the reason. It was based on, you know, federal character and all. But Mr. Ali thinks that this prof is also clearly partisan. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thought is, as well as a thought of every sound living Nigeria, for goodness sake, let us not just take the Constitution one part. Why can't we just afford the whole of it holistically? We have the fundamental human rights section. We have section 14 that has to guarantee the citizenry participation. When you put all these other sections together, I have the right to belong to a political party, and I have the right also to debelong myself. When you take the case of Loretta, the aide, presidential aide, when she was confirmed, she said, yes, I was a carrying member, but I denounced my membership of that party, which is also pursuant to a fundamental human right. For every sound Nigeria, pursuant to Section 14, you must participate, what guarantee the citizenry participation in making a government. I mean, politics is not a kind of a profession, when you take the definition from the advanced democracy, should be a business of everybody that is eligible. From the age of 18, if you can vote, you can also be voted. Earlier on, if people talk, somebody was trying to castigate the lowest living, I mean, somebody would have been trained to a living certificate level. It's just to be literate. And why the Constitution contemplated that was because we adopted English as our constitutional language. Parliamentary, judiciary, governance is all conducted in English, despite the prevalence of our other vernaculars. But we chose English. So for somebody to be trained to that level, you have been given a larger point. And it is left for the electorate. If you feel somebody who has been educated to a living certificate level can be eloquent, fluent, excel in business, in governance, you look at his own antecedents, and you feel is the right person you can choose to govern you, so be it. Now, let me come. So the Constitution is trying to be broad-based.
Yeah, let me just read this before you get to that next point.
Now, if somebody is a carry member yesterday.
No, just a minute. Let me read this, you know, so you can add it to your response as well. Because what is being published, circulating out there, indicates that Ms. Gumus, there's a registration document that shows her becoming a member, she became a member of the APC on March 27, 2021 at Ward 08 in Yenagoa with membership number 58315. Are you saying this is okay to be screened and approved as an INEC commissioner?
So, good. Like I said, she could be a member of the political party until any time before the screening. But if she can come forth and say, yes, I was, and I now denounce it, there's no constitutional provision that says she cannot be considered. I can be a partisan politician, and a point decided not to be non-partisan, just to see how I can bring when the whole party's field candidate, I can be a filter, a sensitizer, a kind of an advocacy for good governance, irrespective of political party. I was from the APC before, I could denounce it. So nobody says, when I was a member of a political party, I cannot change my status quo. That is the point I want Nigerians to look at. In as much as the Constitution has provided, as long as anybody remains a card-carrying member pursuant to that section 154A, you cannot be considered to be an umpire because you cannot be a judge in your own case. But if the person denies, and we have the issue of changing, I can be a businessman, tomorrow I can be a lawyer, then from a lawyer I can metaphorically be an aviator, I can be a builder, despite my lawyer background. Nobody says if I'm a lawyer, I cannot enter into the building profession.
Okay.
It's just to satisfy the laid down criteria. So what I'm trying to say here, in essence, we in the National Assembly, we don't want to make a situation to be a watertight. Let flexibility. If she comes and say, yes, I joined so-so date with all these particulars given, and I'm not ready to renounce my membership, then she disqualifies herself.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ali, do you see any value in the arguments that has been brought forth by the Honorable? Because there are those, of course, several, across all geopolitical zones in the country, who are saying anyone who is, I mean, they completely agree with what the law says.
Yeah, I couldn't but agree with what the Constitution provides about the impropriety of having, whether they denounce their membership of, or they still card-carrying members of any political party. The perception to most people is that the insistence of having, even if they renounce their membership of any partisan group, is that there won't be a level playing field. Why? Because do you really renounce deep down? Do you really, are you capable of raising above your, well, political leaning or persuasion, even when you've clearly said you're not going to be, or you've denounced membership? So the perception out there is, a lot of people share this perception that there won't be any level playing field. Why? Because if the electoral body is populated by former card-carrying members who have, which is their right anyway, if you can decide not to be part of any political organization or party after being a member for a while. There are people who have, at a point they say, look, we are done with partisanship, we're done with partisan politics. Former leaders, for example, Obasanjo has said that he's no longer a card-carrying member of any political party. But then you can't say the man is not deeply political. He is one of those who will determine who becomes the president. So also, if you say at a point you've decided you are no longer a partisan member of, or a card-carrying member of a political party, what about their previous relationship with the particular political party? Are you going to be neutral in everything? And won't you consider your former associates as favored candidates or as favored individuals when you are confronted with a choice? So yes, ideally, yes, this is the way it should be. You denounce your membership, then you want to take up a larger, more objective responsibility. But in our climate, rarely we do that. Deep down, most of us are closeted partisan elements. We may not be card-carrying members of any political parties, but deep down we have our political sympathies, we have our political leanings, we have our political persuasions. Man by nature is being a political animal. This is an argument that has been said over and over again. So I don't see that really carrying much weight, whether you've denounced it or you still, in the first place, you shouldn't even be there. The individuals who are known to be partisan, card-carrying members, should not be seen anywhere close to the electoral body. The idea of them being even screened, to me, is a bit disturbing. It's unsettling. Okay. So yes, I believe strongly that constitutional provision or what the law says about such individuals should be enforced to the latter. This is my,
Honorable. Thank you, Mr. Ali. Honorable, humor me with this, with your response to this. Would you hold the same position you hold now if the person in question is a prominent member of the opposition?
Why not? If we denounce being partisanship, I still insist. Because there has no any provision in the Nigerian constitution that says if I now announce and denounce my partisanship, then I will still be considered. Even
will
though
the person deny
will
his or her sentiments, Honorable?
You see, sentiment aside, let me tell you, how many percentage of the Nigerians' entire governance architect are politicians? Take the 36 states. Just take the governors and deputy governors. Then come to all other people are elected. Even take the state houses of assembly. What is their percentage compared to the whole civil service structure of that state? And the Constitution says all the civil servants are not supposed to be partisan. Look, when the Constitution is talking, it's talking about partisanship. But yet, those civil servants are supposed to be allegiance to the governors of the day, be it PDP or APC, ABGA. So what I'm trying to say here is that you cannot pick somebody who doesn't have interest, who doesn't have the desire, who doesn't have the audacity to clean the politics for him to become a political umpire. Somebody must have shown interest in politics, and he's trying to sanitize, not just pick somebody who is just so indolent, or a journalist who doesn't even pay tribute to anybody that governs, and then you just put him there. Can't he vote? Does it mean that if you are an INEC commissioner or you are working in INEC, you don't have the right to choose Mr. Chamberlain if he presented himself and you found him fit and stood for leadership? Where does the Constitution say that? So the issue of who I love, Ali could have impressed me with his impressive credentials. And then I am the INEC commissioner. I have the right for this one vote. I can vote for Ali, for goodness sake. Where does this say is because I'm an INEC commissioner or I am the chief executive of INEC, I cannot cast my vote? Who says if I'm a governor of APC, I cannot find somebody desirable to be in the National Assembly, senator or whatever, even if it's not from my own party, that I cannot, if I am sincere, and sincerely I am patriotic. So the key word there is patriotic. So if I now say, okay, see me now as a member of House of Reps, APC, you want to make me an INEC commissioner, I will denounce my membership of the House of Representatives, deny being partisanship, and be an umpire, so that we're in search of credible leadership, good governance.
Okay, so let me just get this right, Honorable. What does partisan mean to you? I need to first understand. When you say someone is partisan, what does it mean to you?
Partisans means to me, as we got it and we are using it to draft law in the National Assembly or to amend laws, partisan is for you to take side. In terms of living as a Nigeria,
right?
You see, let's separate the word partisanship from participating in politics. I can be a card-carrying member, which the Constitution requires me to be, and in doing so is pursuing my constitutional right.
Okay.
In fact, it is even considered to be, to some extent, an act of not showing being patriotic if you refuse to get your PVC right.
Okay, so essentially...
meaning you have sacrificed and relinquished your right to criticize any government in power because you refuse to participate.
Okay,
now,
so let's take the case.
You want to participate. And partisan, I'm coming. Partisanship is different from being participating in political activities. But partisanship now is for me to belong to any group that get itself registered at a political party.
Okay. All right. So I've taken your definition, but let me just reiterate. Or before that, so let me ask, the case of the presidential aide, would you say she's a strong supporter of the APC, of the president, or not? even if she's not a member?
Well, let me not per se generalize it a supporter of APC, but a supporter of the president in person.
All right.
With his credentials.
Okay.
Just like any other people have then deposed and perceived Buhari was the best man for that time.
So having
Majority
agreed,
of the people, because
right,
there
so
are
having
also
agreed,
other,
Honorable,
about 2 million who said no to Buhari.
So having agreed that she's indeed a strong supporter of the president, perhaps not the party, let me now read the definition of partisan for you. It means a strong supporter of a party, a cause, or a person. In this case, a person, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is the leader of the APC in Nigeria. So we can agree, especially because there's a constitutional provision for that, that the person should be non-partisan, that indeed if she's a strong supporter of the president, who is the leader of the APC, then she's partisan, based on you saying she's a strong supporter of the president.
I agree, quite all right. But then that's why she said, I was a card-carrying member because I supported Buhari. But now that I am going to be saddled with a responsibility to look beyond Buhari, probably there are 1,001 Buhari elsewhere. By positioning herself as an umpire, she might discover or allow a leveling playing field for people who are more than Buhari to emerge. She now says, I denounce being partisanship. Even my support for President Buhari has been dropped.
Honorable, is this the position? Honorable, is this position you hold the position of members of the House of Representatives?
It's my personal opinion.
Do you have a percentage of people who think exactly the way you do in the House?
Well, in that case, going by our cliques, I think about more than 50% of us, we the new generation members of, though we came in just from 2011 to date, most of us are of this view because we have been experienced, we knew the problems, so we felt we should be more patriotic and then get anybody. Our partisanship goes to anybody whom we believe will add value to the Nigerian governance, will take us out of the mess we are in governance.
Okay.
But the most key word is patriotic, somebody who can sacrifice himself for the nation to move forward.
Well, what the law says in paragraph 14 of part 1 of the third schedule of the Constitution as amended by section 30, Act number 1 of 2010, it clearly stated that a member of the Independent National Electoral Commission shall be non-partisan. Didn't say patriotic. Well,
that is what we are saying. Pursuant to that section, that's what I'm deposing. Non-partisan, how do you define? Is there any time frame allotted to when you will be partisan and when not? If yes, she was or I was, and then later now I renounce because I want to be a good citizen to participate in government in any capacity I found myself.
But this is they renounce because they want to get their nomination to scale through. Yeah, but this is renouncing because they want this nomination to scale through.
And the parameters governing that situation. No, I'm now in a member of the House of Assembly. I cannot be so partisan, but rather my loyalty should go in all the people that display themselves, who and who I felt can actually take us to the promised land.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Ali on this one, so just don't lose a lot more time. Mr. Ali, how do you respond to this?
Well, you see, like I said from my previous comment, the thing is there's a wide disparity between theory and practice. In theory, yes, it's possible that when you denounce membership of any organization, you will be able to be neutral. But in practice, and especially in our client, elsewhere where you have people who are deeply partisan involved in the electoral body, they are partisan on the basis of ideology. They are either leftists or rightists, for example. But in our own climb, our differences are mostly driven by patronage. People could differ, were divided based on the amount of patronage or the influence we peddle. So the danger here is
if people say they have renounced their membership, and then must they serve in the electoral body, for example? Because the electoral body, like we've been pontificating all this while, quoting the relevant constitutional provisions and then the relevant act, should be populated by people who have risen above this partisanship, who look at the nation as their constituency, not individuals. Whether they are strong supporters, what did Loretta in, especially previously, was the fact that she was seen lightly by people who are critical of the administration of the government led by Buhari. She was literally seen as an attack dog, that she took no prisoners, and she was unabashed about that. She was unrestrained. So she was known to go on endless tirade against people who are critical of the administration. Then imagine having that one in the electoral body. So it will send the wrong signals. Similarly with the one that is being screened now for a possible replacement of Loretta Onochi, why must they be in the electoral body? Agreed, that may be a violation of their fundamental human rights. But against the backdrop of the challenges facing the nation, especially the electoral umpire that is seen, even till this moment, has been partisan itself. You ask those who lost in the 2019 election that the electoral umpire was actually not as neutral as it should be. And that's why some people challenge the 2019 election in court, because there are some anomalies they detected, especially. So, but yes, in theory, yes, it's possible to have someone who had previously, they belonged previously to any partisan organization, but then they say they have renounced their membership. It's possible in theory, but in practice, how often, for all, I could choose to have another profession, but for the early years I've spent in the media, it's impossible for me now. If I start another career, I would think first as a pressman, as a reporter, who would always be interested in having more than a side of the story. So that is it. That will be my influence. And I see that also if you being a member of a political party, and then suddenly you say, okay, I have risen now because I want to serve. You are renouncing or denouncing or because of certain exigencies, because of something you think in the final analysis it will be good for you personally, and that's why you are renouncing that, because there is the motive. That's the motive now, not so much because you want to serve. You could have chosen to renounce your membership of that political party long before the opportunity to serve in the electoral body came. So all right. It's understandable if people make these reservations.
All right, Ali M. Ali, Deputy President, Nigeria Guild of Editors, and Editor-in-Chief, People's Daily, as well as Honorable Yunus Ahmed, Member, House of Representatives Committee on AIDS, Loans and Debts. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at some response coming through. This is coming from Brendan, who says about the same subject matter, INEC Commissioner nominees. Just listening to one of your guests on the program this morning defending the nomination of card-carrying members of a political party to INEC shows that there can never be an expectation of independence from political interference on those officials. Well, by the way, Honorable was saying that she has what? Denounced being membership. So just to put that out there.
Well, take a look at this one from Ido Bakari on INEC composition, saying perception is more important than reality for an election umpire to gain citizen confidence and public trust. Citizens and electorate must perceive an umpire as unbiased before they can give trust to it. This is a well-known fact. An openly partisan person has no place in INEC, especially one from the two main parties. It is not only insulting to the electorate, but it is also immoral.
Dixon on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill says that the National Assembly has transmitted the reworked Electoral Act Amendment Bill to the President. I urge the President to, as a matter of urgency, sign this bill immediately and without any delay, as he promised earlier.
Official says on 2023 polls, there is no third force party that can unseat the APC and the PDP without the participation of the grassroots. Sadly, many of our presidential aspirants are not even known in their local areas. Those describing themselves as third force politicians should first build their party at the grassroots level if they must replace the APC and the PDP.
Let me just rush through this one from Adenike on the Apapa gridlock, saying, like many problems in Nigeria, it is caused by people who are bigger than the government itself. These people choke the progress of the country. Why hasn't anyone been named and shamed for all the myriad of problems?
So there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of your messages today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.